Welcome back to It's New, and we got some exciting stuff to discuss, some data leaks, some API leaks, some search Google leaks. So we're going to get into that soon. Greg, what do you have on preview today?
So first up, quick here, back in November-ish, I believe there was that best deals search bar where it just said best deals. And then there was some icons underneath that appears to be back. Umar Khan had seen this on X. It's kind of strange because you're searching for backyard tents and then you just see all these other categories out there. It looks like they got rid of that best deals part.
Yeah.
Additionally, any other notes on that, Barry?
No, I mean, it's weird. I don't like it. I think they should get rid of it, but whatever.
Okay. And then if you are an advertiser and you don't have an end date on an experiment that you're running, Google will put an end date on that for you soon. That'll end on August 23rd, 2024. So if you're trying to run something into perpetuity to get the biggest sample size, perpetuity is ending. It's now August 23rd.
But you could change it. You can always, Google said you can actually change the end date if you want to make it longer, that's fine. But Google's going to assign an end date to that.
Right. So if you just had it going and you thought it would go forever, it'll shut off on the 23rd unless you change it.
Okay, and then two more things before we get into the data leak. One is over the Memorial Day weekend, it seems like Google has some more search ranking volatility. The tools all lit up. More charts for you, Greg. And
yes.
Then the SEO chatter was off the charts as well. So cool stuff there.
Okay, what's the big news, Barry?
Well, one more thing. John Mueller had another post about recovering from the core updates. And then he goes off on Reddit, basically talking about what it's not. It's like not about server issues. It's not about removing a few ads. It's not about disavowing a few links. It's not about buying a few more links. It's not about switching to a new SEO plugin. And he basically like lists off the kitchen sink approach that Glenn Gabe said. And said, if you try it all, maybe it's time to move on. Of course, that's causing a lot of people that are hit by this September helpful content update to be not happy. But at the same time, maybe John's right.
Yeah, I mean, also you should always listen verbatim, word for word from Google employees, correct, Barry?
Exactly. So now that this is out, it's interesting. So somehow this Rand Fishkin got a heads up from some anonymous source that this person had access to huge amounts of search API documentation from Google, which was leaked on, I think, GitHub or something like that. And they went through it. He had phone calls. He validated everything. It seems to be legit. I went through it after this morning very quickly. It seems to be legit. Mike King did an amazing rundown on iPullRank of the actual details of that search API. And it goes through a lot of details about how search ranking works, has worked, maybe has never worked. But it seems like it went through a lot of stuff. Now, it's hard to summarize it all here, but there's over 14,000 ranking features or assignments in the document. Some things around site authority, which Rand Fishkin was talking about forever. He called it domain authority. Google's like, we don't have domain authority. Well, it seems like they had something like domain authority. Google now talks about this type of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe back then, maybe they did. Whatever. I mean, going into these details is going to take too long. It talks about nav boost. It talks about click data. It talks about age, like sandbox stuff. It talks about using Chrome features. It talks about baby pandas. It goes on and on. Really cool to see this. I don't, Greg maybe had a few minutes to look at it as well. I don't think anything caught your eye there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was looking at the nav boost system that we heard from the DOJ before, but using clicks, CTR, long, short clicks, some of that. And then the Chrome clickstream data I thought was really interesting. Again, this is all alleged and we don't know what weight or anything is coming into this, but seeing some of those things where historically Google, at least face value, had said these things do not matter. There is no, I remember like Gary Esch had said, like, really went after Rand, and I think it was a Reddit post before, saying this is all made up, and just be able to see this in there, I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so it is interesting. It's super. I mean, it's super interesting because obviously I covered all the comments from Googlers in the past, Gary, John, even Danny Sullivan, who is now at Google. And they all pretty much said the same thing about click-through rates and so forth. And then to see Rand went off. He's like, I was right. You guys are all wrong. You went after me saying, how can I cover Google statements and
You
not
caught a
validate them?
stray. You caught a stray from him. There's a picture of a headline in there.
I get it. At the same time, I also covered Rand's story saying Rand Fishkin says this. And then I covered Google says this. I mean, that's what I do.
Right.
I'm a brief writer, and I get it. I write fast. There's somebody who writes faster than me on this topic, but I don't go into detail. I say this is what Rand Fishkin found on. He got this data leak. This is what Mike King wrote about it. This is what Elena said. This is what Lily Ray said. This is what John Mueller said. This is what I do. That being said, Gary Sullivan would have probably pre-Google days would have done an amazing job going through this as well. But that's not my talents, and I get that. So, but I get why he's been upset. At the same time, there's other ways to look into this type of stuff. Maybe Google use CTR to not for ranking purposes, but to evaluate that after the fact. It's hard to know because they don't really go into the details. Yes, they keep track of this type of stuff. So could Google be right? Maybe. Could Google be wrong? It looks like it. Most likely they could be wrong, but again, we don't know those details. But 100%, every SEO should spend a nice amount of time going through these API docs if you haven't seen them yet. There are links to it. Or just read what Mike King wrote and Rand Fishkin wrote about it. But it's just wild. I mean, really went off on that. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I mean, people really gave him a hard time. And yeah, of course I covered when Google gave him a hard time. And of course I covered when Rand Fishkin gave Google a hard time. That's what I do. But there's a lot of emotion in there. And a lot of it backs up with Department of Justice stuff. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I don't even know if you want to go through any of the specific stuff, but yeah, I mean, specifically site authority, which again, Google said they do use some level of site overall domain authority, not domain, whatever they want to call it, if the site's authoritative. Especially with the helpful content update, you get hit by that, your whole site is impacted by that, and you can see that with a lot of the stuff. Google specifically commented on Sandbox, and Matt Cutts in the early days said there is no Sandbox, and John Mueller said that again, and then there was. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, we called it a sandbox. Where do we get the name from? It seems like somebody leaked it to us ages ago. This whole baby panda stuff, people are assuming it's like a new version of Panda. I don't think so. I think it's just what Google called it internally in their API docs. Instead of calling it Panda, they probably called it. I don't think that's used anymore based on what I know about Google. I think it's just stuff that was in there. I don't think baby panda is still used as a signal. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. I can't go through it all right now, but
Mike did a good job breaking those down, showing some of the demotions, that links are still important, really taking a look at some of those signals again from Chrome and CTR. A great write-up. I'll just second that. But Barry, to the point where you got torched a little bit, I don't know what you're supposed to do. And I think also, like, just because Google says something, now we've seen it on the ad side. Obviously, if this is true, this corroborates some of the mistrust that we should have on it. I've been saying that for years, though, too. You listen to the show. Why would Google never use click-through rate, right? Like, I think in general, it doesn't make sense. If you have a search engine, you go to put things that people want more higher than other things that people want less. Like, I know that Google says these things, and I definitely felt that emotion, like you said there, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's a win to say for all the people who are using their brains to be like, you would have to do this, right? Like,
I mean, Google did comment on why they wouldn't use click-through rate because it's easy. There are like search engines in the past that failed because they use it, like Direct Hit. They just use that as a ranking factor, and they said if people click it more, people like it more, and that could be easily manipulated. That's what Google's rationale was. Now, do they use it as a signal to figure out if other signals should be boosted more or less? Again, maybe Google's like, you shouldn't focus on that because it's not going to matter that much. I don't know.
Right.
Google has told us things like, don't worry about this. They don't want us going in the wrong direction, focusing on clicks when we should be building out great content. I get that. But to outright lie and say we don't use it at all, maybe when Google said that, maybe they didn't. I don't know. It's hard to know for sure. I'm very, very trusting of people. Like when somebody says to my face in person at a conference, we don't do that, and they look me in the eyes, I believe them. And I have no reason not to believe them, to be honest. because they're real people. I know them for a long time, so maybe they were tricked, or maybe they just said, you know what, maybe they were liars. I don't know. I even covered that people said Gary's a liar, and Gary's like, I'm not a liar. So I cover this stuff, and I get it why he's upset, but I think this is great. I think this information out there. I cover this as well, so I cover everything. It's
Well,
very,
I
very
think,
interesting.
Barry, all your coverage is a great service for the SEO community. I disagree with
That's fine. I mean, yeah, honestly, he wouldn't be able to go back in history and say all those. I mean, he referenced my screenshots, and that's a reason to cover it itself. But that being said, it's not about that. I really do think people should really go through this. It is something. I think Joe Youngblood called this a golden document. I think Cyrus Shepard posted the actual links on hexdocs.pm to the actual information itself. There's so many good things in there. It's really something you should all look at. And some people are actually suggesting that this was leaked to kind of divert the attention away from everything else that Google's doing right now. That Google intentionally leaked it.
I don't think that's true. That can't be true. And then there also might be some like non-SEO stuff that comes out of this too, if this is proven to be true. I know there were some whitelists and some political whitelists as well, right? Where that could be a big deal. I haven't gone through and looked at all those whitelisted sites, but I know again that was a big thing with the election, so I thought that could have some interesting ramifications as well. And then there's also some the last thing that I thought was good was some of the quality rater feedback kind of getting implemented directly in there. So pretty cool stuff. Like Barry said, take some time. We can't cover it here, but I'm sure we'll have a lot of fallout tomorrow.
Right. Google once said that there were no whitelists, but then a week later they clarified we call whitelists exception lists. So technically there are whitelists, and this is something from Matt Cut. So again, a lot of this stuff that you dig into, there are references to these little things, and it kind of does. This has to be the real thing. This is not made up. This is real. So definitely take a look at it, and hopefully you guys get something out of it. But again, it all comes back to really about building really good content that people want to click on, that people want to read, people want to link to. It's all that type of stuff. So enjoy reading it, and thanks to Rand and to Mike King for putting this together. Really good stuff. Thank you.
And thanks to you, Barry, for covering everything.
Appreciate it.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.